Hello, and welcome to the Interchange Book 3, Unit 4 video for the past perfect. So, in today's video, we are going to look at the past perfect and how we use the past perfect. So, first, we need to look at a situation, okay? And we're going to look at two different things that happened to this man, okay? So, here he is, and he's arriving to work, and his boss isn't happy, so maybe he's arriving to work late, okay? And then here he is, and he's waking up, okay? And he looks like he's a little bit, anxious. He looks like he's a little bit upset. Maybe he woke up late. So which one happened first is what I'm going to ask you. Which event happened first, okay? Well, he woke up late or he arrived to work late. Which one do you think happened first? Well, obviously, right, that he woke up first and then he went to work, okay? So let's say he woke up at 8:45 in the morning and that he finally arrived to work at 9:45 in the morning and he was late, okay? So let's look at this on a time scale, okay? So like we said, at 8:45, the first thing happened. The first action happened. He woke up late. And then later at 9:45, the second action happened, right? He arrived to work. So if we notice, there's a distinct amount of time between the first action and the second action, right? Now, when I'm going to describe this situation, I'm going to use my grammar. I'm going to use the past perfect, okay? So I'm going to say, because he had woken up late, he arrived late for work. Okay? So notice in my first action, I'm using my grammar of the past perfect. Okay? And then the second action, I'm using the simple past. Okay? So this is basically how we use the past perfect. But let's examine the grammar of the past perfect a little bit more closely. So, let's take a look at the basic formula for the past perfect. Now, it's important to remember that for the past perfect, we're always using this grammar for two actions in the past, okay? So it's always used for describing two different actions in the past. Now, we're always using our auxiliary verb had, right? And the past participle. And that's the main verb, okay? So the auxiliary is had, and the past participle is the main verb. Now, I can use a negative if I say hadn't, for example, right? If I want to be negative, I can use the negative auxiliary hadn't, right? Now, let's remind ourselves of what subjects use the auxiliary had. Well, all of the subjects use had, right? So remember that in the past perfect, all my subjects are going to use had for the auxiliary verb. I had, you had, he had, she had, it had, they had, we had. All the subjects use had. Now, let's remind ourselves what is essentially a past participle. Well, remember the past participles can be regular, and they end in ed. So, for example, walked, finished, and visited. Those are all types of past participles that I can use in the past perfect, right? But those are the regular ones with ed. But I have irregular past participles. For example, gone, seen, and been. So these are all different types of past participles, right? So let's take a look at an example. For example, I hadn't seen my friend for a long time before I saw him yesterday. So, if I look at this sentence and I look at the past perfect here, I hadn't seen my friend for a long time before I saw him yesterday. Now, again, this is the first thing that happens, or in this context, the first thing that didn't happen. I hadn't seen my friend for a long time before I saw him yesterday. So, this is the second action. So remember, my simple past is the second thing that happens. and the past perfect is the first thing that happens. So I'm always using a simple past sentence with the past perfect because the past perfect is for two actions in the past. Not for one, but for two. So let's look at another example. The waiter had already taken my order when my friend came to the restaurant. So again, in this first part, had already taken. The waiter had already taken my order. That's the first thing that happened, right? When my friend came to the restaurant. So that's the simple past. That's the second thing that happened. Again, using the past perfect to indicate which action happened first. Here's another example. Mike and Sarah had been together for 2 years when they ended the relationship. So, again, if I look, my past perfect, Mike and Sarah had been together for 2 years. That's the first thing that happened. When they ended the relationship. So, this is the second thing that happened. They ended the relationship. Okay? So again, the past perfect indicates the first thing that happened in a sequence of two things in the past. Okay? Let's look at some more examples to maybe visualize how we use the past perfect. Okay, again, two situations. Which situation happened first? Right? Well, if he woke up early, maybe it's because he didn't set his alarm, right? Or he didn't put his alarm. So I'm going to say that happened first, and this happened second. So if I'm going to use my grammar in the correct way, I'd say something like this. He hadn't put the alarm the night before, so he woke up late. Again, using the grammar of the past perfect, he hadn't put the alarm the night before, so he woke up late. Notice my second action is in the simple past. Okay? Again, let's look at a different example. So, what do you think happened first? He took a shower or he left the house? Well, obviously he probably took a shower before he left his house, right? But if I use my grammar in the past perfect to describe the situation, I'm going to say something like this. He had taken a shower before he left the house. So, again, my past perfect here indicates that's the first action that happened. And then the simple past indicates the second action that happens. Okay? Let's look at another example. So, which one happened first? He missed the bus or he was late for work? Well, probably this happened and then this happened. So my first action is the past perfect, remember? So I'm going to say, he had missed the bus before he was late for work. And again, my first action, right, is that past perfect. He had missed the bus before he was late. And that's the second thing that happened, that he was late for work. Okay. Now, one last thing to think about. So, we said the first action is always the past perfect. And the second action is always the simple past. So I read this sentence like this. He had taken a shower before he left the house. Great, that's a perfect sentence. But we can change the order of things a little bit, right? I can talk about the second thing that he did before I talk about the first thing that he did. And that's okay. But my grammar needs to be the same. So I'm going to say, he left the house after he had taken a shower. Okay? And this is okay to do. This is fine. If I use this, I'm just using the past perfect as the second thing that I talk about. But the grammar tells me that it's the first thing that happened. So it doesn't matter what the order is, but the grammar tells me what happened first. And the past perfect always tells me that that's the first action that happened. Okay, so I hope this was helpful in explaining how we use the past perfect. And we always use the past perfect to talk about two different things that happened in the past, and we want to talk about which one happened first. And for that reason, we use the past perfect. Okay. Thanks for listening and good luck.